Squeeze into beautiful eyes. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Alyssa Karpenka, and I'm the event coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. This event is coming to you from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. Just to note that this event is being live streamed to our YouTube page, so please be aware of the webcam next to you. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of Lucas Crawford's latest poetry collection, Muster Points. Thank you to Lucas for being here tonight, to Alison Cobra from University of Calgary Press for working with us to create this event, and to Leah Horlick and Brian Bradshaw for being our special guests this evening. Lucas Crawford is the author of 5 books, including the award-winning poetry collections Sideshow Concessions and Belated Bris of the Brainsick. His poetry and scholarship focuses on relationships between space, aesthetics, bodies, and queer conceptions of health. Lucas has spent most of his life in rural areas of Mi'kmaqi, but currently lives on Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, Alberta. He is the Canada Research Chair of Transgender Creativity and Mental Health at the University of Alberta's Augustana faculty. Leah Horlick is the 2022-23 Canadian Writer in Residence with the Distinguished Writers Program at the University of Calgary. She is the author of 3 books of poetry, Riot Lung, For Your Own Good, and Moldovan Hotel. She is a past winner of Canada's Dane Ogilvy Prize for LGBTQ2S+ Emerging Writers in 2016. For Your Own Good was named a Stonewall Honor title by the American Library Association. After many years away, Leah is glad to be back where she grew up as a settler on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis in Saskatoon. Brian Bradshaw is a queer spoken word artist, burlesque artist, and producer of several poetic stage shows. As a troupe member of the Rosebud Burlesque Club, Ryan, also known as Conrad Fusion, has performed his poetry at the Vancouver, Edmonton, and Saskatoon International Burlesque Festivals, and at events in Toronto and New Orleans. Outside of poetry and burlesque, he has been a frequent contributor to the Dance Current magazine since 2021, primarily reporting on dance in Saskatchewan. He lives on Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis in Saskatoon. I will now turn things over to Leah. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, and everybody, and for folks who are tuning in online as well. This is such a beautiful reunion. We were just catching up. For those of you who've been filtering in, you've been seeing us preening at each other about how nice it is to see each other again. Ryan and I haven't read together in probably 15 years, but you were one of the first people I ever performed poetry with. And Lucas is one of my favorite familiar faces from our time together in Vancouver, but our paths have also crossed in some other really beautiful ways. We were both recently in Alberta, but also we have some wonderful and unusual things in common. Both of our families are from rural Nova Scotia, and we also share some ancestral Jewish heritage together, which is a really nice thing to have in common. So Lucas was one of our favorite, not that I get to pick favorites, but one of our favorite readers at Reverb, which was a reading series that my friend Estlin McPhee and I ran in the downtown east side for about 5 years. But you were also, and I don't actually know if Lucas knows this, so this is a secret for all of us now, the Ruth Wynne Woodward Chair at SFU in gender studies when I ran the Women's Centre. And so before you and I actually met, I knew you were an excellent professor because I had my best volunteer collective meetings after your courses. I'd get all these first and second year new feminists in the Women's Centre super fired up, and they were always saying they had just been in your courses. So this is just a really lovely full circle moment to get to share. So I thought what I would do in honor of our time together is read what I think is perhaps my most Vancouver poem to kick us off. It's called There Must Be a Name for This. How to feel like how you imagine the city. A blur of light steps out of a cab. Stem of a glass in a ring on a wet table. Slink, slink. Would it have been better if you had moved into that little beehive level with the SkyTrain? Whoosh all day, glow all night, little hexagram. One stool, one door, 2 windows at an angle with the tracks, track. 2 windows. Rattle, rattle, good night all day. You imagined glass and water, heels and click, the film of alcohol across everything, city, city. Little dots of light, little swipes. A secret. Vancouver is actually a series of small caves, did you know? Mold like a dust of sugar powder. Saturday night aesthetic. The Chevron station for yachts in Cole Harbor, hovered out in the water, glossy black, little ring, orange light. How long did it take me to realize the white hot squares at the top of downtown are penthouses? How long did it take me to realize those very regular fireworks are private planes? Why can't I have, why can't I have, why can't I? What if we had just kept living together? What if I just tried harder? What if I had moved to Toronto? All the women in this city say, I love you. They say centered. We say seawall. We go home and murmur, Toronto, Toronto, Seattle, Toronto in our sleep. You don't understand. I have an obligation to a girl in a barn, to a girl in a car, to a girl in the forest. She says, get me out of here. She says, my own apartment. Is it possible to be dissociated, not from me, but the city? Like, here I am, arms and legs. Here I am, oh, New York. Welcome, Ryan.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I was so happy when I got this email that I was going to be performing with these two lovely people that I haven't seen in ages, and I'm just really thankful to be here with you. I'm primarily I've been primarily writing nature poetry, so I thought I would share a couple of those. I'm a bird watcher. I've been leading some bird walks around town, and I'm really into trees. So the two poems I'm going to share first are about trees. This first one is specifically about a tree that we met in St. Louis when my husband and I were traveling there. And I only recently discovered that, like long after I wrote the poem, that the tree had to be taken down because it had rotted out from the inside, and I guess they took it down last year. Someone asked me, they were going to visit and asked me where it's located, so I started doing my research to try to get the map and realized it's not there anymore. So this is dedicated to a very special tree. I wish you could see the catalpa tree that towers in Tower Grove Park, to admire its size with your own two eyes and the artistry of its bark. I wish you could hug the catalpa's trunk, press both your palms against its skin, and then you could sense the mighty presence of the spirit who lives within. Yes, I wish you could see beyond the wood, to regard it as your elder, to accept its shade on a scorching day, and then thank it for its shelter, to give it respect, to never forget that it creates the breath of life, to listen. Its leaves rustling in the breeze would offer you peace and insight. I wish you could see the catalpa's leaves. Stand beneath them, gazing upward, with your mouth agape as you note their shape and the brilliance of their color. Every green part is shaped like a heart. If all could see those leaves above, then the world would know. Just one tree can grow 100,000 acts of love. The catalpa tree has so much to teach. I wish I could be its student, devoting my days to learning its ways in Tower Grove Park, St. Louis. To master the skill of just staying still. To connect with the earth and sky. To be like the leaf-crowned catalpa tree, who is gentle and strong and wise. Thank you. And this one is for, I'm going through some changes in my life, and this is kind of about that, and I imagine some other people are too. If I could stop and wait and see, I'd watch a tree transform in fall. I'd see how perfect change can be. If I could watch an autumn tree who faces change so strong and tall. If I could stop and wait and see. I'd watch the leaves transform from green into yellow. I'd watch them all and see how perfect change can be. And changes that were forced on me won't make me feel so weak and small. If I could stop and wait and see, I'd watch cold wind blow through the tree, watch yellow leaves begin to fall, and see how perfect change can be. And changes that were forced on me, I'll come to understand them all. I'll know how perfect change can be if I just stop and wait and see.
I feel shy, and if you've tucked into this book at all, like even onto page 1, you'd be like, I don't believe you're shy. You put that out there and your mother might be reading it, and it's probably, hi Joan. Yeah, my mom's name is Joan Crawford. But like actually, so obviously my sibling and I are both gay. Thank you for being here. You two, it's just like the nicest when you get up and take the mic and you're the visiting person and you're like, shit, I have to follow both of those. Those were so good. And I want to like throw out my plan of my Post-its and be like, what goes with that? What goes with that? That Vancouver poem, where can we all find it? Where is it?
It's online through my website. I can.
It's online.
I'll put it on Twitter.
Okay,
Put it on the hellscape.
Thank you. Yeah, it is the hellscape. I feel like every Vancouver poem is kind of a leaving Vancouver poem, right? And it kind of was. Leaving / loving.
Yep.
Paying the rent. This is muster points. Yeah, thanks. Oh God. I'll take that. If you like this cover, you should have seen the 2 they rejected. I wasn't going to say that. I love, if you're out there, everyone at University of Calgary Press has been fantastic to work with. Two of my books are with them. Love them all. My friend Morgan C. did the design. Please look her up if you're like, I've been looking for an awesome, radical, trans lady graphic designer. Like, that's her, okay? It's a hand reaching into a jar of peanut butter. But
Sure.
There's a poem about peanut butter, like literal peanut butter. But the hand is sort of covering some letters accidentally so that all you can see is nut butt.
Oh, no.
So we got that by maybe the censors. The other versions were somewhat more literal, I'll say. Okay, I'm gonna start with one that I have, because of the pandemic, it's like, you know, normally when you're writing a book, you're like, okay, I have this cruddy one, I'll try it at a reading. Like, nope, it's all kind of new to me. This stuff. Haven't read it, didn't think I would. Am going to because I was snippy to my girlfriend earlier, because I was anxious about my reading. This is as literal and boring a love poem as I've ever written. So, hi Lauren.
Hi.
And it was like, you know, I wrote it on maybe the other day I've ever been kind of snippy to you. Yeah. When we got together, like Lauren lived here and I lived over here, and exactly, here's the poet word, equidistant between our apartments was McDonald's. and we'd be like both really busy working from home and be like, meet me for nuggets. And we were lingering in the car eating nuggets, and I was like, all right, get out of my car, I gotta get back to work. But apparently it came across as more like, get out of my car. So that's this, and I'm making our relationship sound amazing. Report from the interior. Get out of my dreams, get into my car, lay back in my arms, let me be your pink pickled beetroot. You made it a compliment when you called me your hoe phase meat cute. Garlicky charcuterie cures what ails us, breaks down tough tendencies. This too is a fiber art. She makes quilts. We can wait for hard things to yield between our teeth. Lick my bloody lip clean. It's a vibe. It's a mood. Let me suck these crude metaphors. For if I call your lonely eye tooth a solo artist, it is because I hum its anthem from night to noon, from sun drop to up moon, thrumming unnumbly and driven for you, and not because it's a familiar tune. Oh, my dear earworm, get out of my dirt, get into my shirt. Sway with me in the burger joint vestibule, kiss me against every plexi and flexi wall that's propped up so much that I want to now let fall. Get out of my autumn, get into my winter, get into my sweater, get into my splinter, get into my cells, into my scars, my near, my far, my cock. I was born a door. Yeah, you can knock. Linger in me too. Let me be the warped gate you enter through. It's too much imagery. What's he even mean? Sometimes the dishes aren't clean and I don't have a spare key, but hey, you come inside me. Thank you. I'll read one or two more and then throw it back to you. Yeah, okay. I'll read the first poem, which is normally how I open a reading. It's called Front Holes. Okay. Somebody doesn't need an explanation. I was like, who needs an explanation? Okay. So like transgender guys, and I won't speak for, any but me, but there's a few different ways that people describe their genitals. A cubby hole, if you're sort of a bear type, a male slot. No, not funny. Okay. Or front hole, which is just like that's the uber literal way of putting it. So this is called Front Holes, and I do it, or I read this poem, partly because it's sort of like the enjoyment of the thing that as a trans guy you're not supposed to like, and it's supposed to be a source of trauma, and it can be that too, and also an enjoyment. So maybe all the trigger warnings, or maybe just swear word sex warnings. Okay. Front Holes. And I'll just say again, it opens the book and it's really sort of about the book, but also things. Inch by inch is how things enter me, also how resources are extracted. Years after prom, I asked a prairie seamstress to cut 2 feet off my peacock gown for a drag queen number. Please, she begged, let's leave it longer to hear, or even just to hear. With our incompatible systems, giving an inch sacrifices at least a kilometer of the Antigonish road on which you, jubilant, vomiting, stumbled sideways to dim boomer apartments to fuck. An enduring crush thought she could fuck me with a black baseball bat of a dildo, no ramp up. Having an audience didn't help. These days I love to clean the house, but it's not a perfect fit I'm after. Before you fuck me, I can't know if you'll laugh. Sorry, looked at you at the wrong time, got overwhelmed. Before you fuck me, I can't know if you'll fuck the last bit of girl out of me or fuck her back in. When you call a number, you can't be sure who will pick up. Dial carefully is not an inspiring parable. In court, Subway, Eat Fresh, insisted that the footlong in footlong sub is symbolic, that 11 inches is enough. In a different court, their spokesperson defended having pursued little girls sexually by arguing that having once been very fat, he did not know how to court women. I too could find a patsy in my past to account for present ineptitude, her. But I could never separate wheat from chaff like others didn't want to. It's not that it's a road seldom taken, it's worn well enough. There are words that work as front door pass keys. Call it call me a boy. Call it ambivalent gender identity as a sex toy. But you dizzy me in slow, unnameable circles. Oh, my meager protections bent in thin hands like dollar store trinkets. I recently reminded another scholar poet not to end every poem with a conclusion. Trust the reader. Let them get there in their own way. This, like other things, is about ceding control and the illusion that you've ever had it. Letting those who enter here see you as they will see you. Would I maybe throw right back to you?
Totally up to
Yeah, get me out of here. Yeah. Can I sit here now, though? In the cozy?
I so rarely get to hear Lucas's work read out loud, let alone from your own voice. It's so tremendous to hear it come off the page like that. And it's also one of my favorite things about your work, which I think I've almost only ever heard live as Sappho intended, which is so nice to get to really be in the spirit of the art form tonight. I thought, because we're on a wavelength as we often are, so I might, not that I could ever follow what we just heard, but I'll try to do it the Leah Horlick way, and maybe speak just a little bit to some of the ancestors, although maybe we don't know how they'd feel about it. I like to think that they won't mind. So this book is quite challenging, and I'm not going to read too much from it tonight because it's not really in the spirit of a celebratory book launch, but my traveling companion with whom I wrote this book is in the audience tonight. So thanks very much for a great trip to Romania, Ava Huziak. I learned that my grandma's village had not been destroyed in the Holocaust, as I thought, and had a chance to go back. And in the process of doing that, went down the Jewish folktale rabbit hole, which is a surprisingly raunchy, confusingly mystical rabbit hole to go down. And I got obsessed with this story called The Spinoza of Market Street. Has anybody read this? Oh, this is the first time someone has known what I'm talking about. I'm so excited. I knew we were on a couple of wavelengths tonight. This is so great. So in brief, this, with apologies to Basheva Singer, this story is about a fellow who decides that rather than engage with the world of men, he will lock himself in an attic to write a treatise on Spinoza's ethics, which is about as exciting as you imagine it would be. And by the time he comes out, he realizes World War I is about to start, and he has no money, he has no food. And he's really getting nowhere with this PhD. And in the meantime, his neighbor, who's a woman who's been shunned by the town, gets a letter and she can't read. And so she thinks, I'll go talk to that weird philosopher next door and see if he can read this letter for me. And they fall in love and decide that they've perhaps been wrong to eschew the world of physical pleasures, which annoyingly is also the thesis of the other book I mentioned in this poem. It's very irritating. You'll see what it is when I get to it. So this is called The Spinoza of Market Street, the Horlick version. I know better now. I have eaten a great deal of dust, felt my feet on the floor of rooms, on quiet, pale green rooms. I have been listening to my body for a long time now, and there is a lot of bad music in there I never have to listen to again. 2 psychics have told me to wait for you, provided specifics, hair color. I have rented a room in the tower and plotted stars. My skin is soft with the grease from candles. I carry my copy of Trust After Trauma with me everywhere, and it is kind of a joke now, but it helps. I keep watch for you in the courtyard. Fights break out. Carriages rattle past like giant locusts. Then the war. The glass in my windows is faceted and dark. This time, I will wait until we have known each other for a long time. And when I come to you at night, I will pull silk dress after satin dress out of my chest and say, this is my trousseau, and you will be impressed with me. I have such a careful inventory of my things. Your turn.
Hi, so in my intro, it was mentioned that I've been writing articles for the Dance Current, a national dance magazine, and I've mostly focused on writing about dance in Saskatchewan, which has been so great. It's a new kind of writing, and I love it. And I just got to talk to people about this thing they're so passionate about, and have these lovely conversations and turn it into an article. So. But I am getting a poem published in the magazine this month. It's not a super happy poem, but I like never get stuff published ever. I'm a spoken word poet, and I've always kind of just focused on that. But yeah, so I don't know, it's kind of exciting, and I wanted to share it. It's the summer issue of the Dance Current is queer themed. It's called At Pactola Lake with My Boyfriend. Pactola Lake was a magical spot, surrounded by gorgeous tree-covered hills. We walked the lake shore. We found some neat rocks. The water was welcoming, clear and still. We shared the beach with a father and child, and I heard the father call us faggots. I carried on. I took photos. I smiled, but I just felt sick and couldn't shake it. And I thought about that innocent kid. Who will this kid become? What if they're queer? Or grow up to do what their father did? They're at risk of feeling or causing fear. The water was welcoming, clear and still, but I just felt sick and couldn't shake it. Thank you. And I'm going to end with something much more uplifting. This is a burlesque poem. I'm not going to remove clothing or anything, but I usually, as a member of the Rosebud Burlesque Club, I often blend my spoken word with striptease. So I'm taming it down a bit from McNally Robinson, and I'm keeping my clothes on. But I think this one actually works still, so. We found each other in the year 2000 at a value village on Vancouver Island. And neither of us could believe our luck. He'd been dumped by a guy who clearly sucked, and he was looking for someone who liked his style. Me, I just wanted someone who made me smile. Someone who suited my personality. Maybe go over well with friends and family. And there he was. He was a perfect fit. We had found each other, and that was it. It's looking nervous sometimes. Oh. We left the store. We went back to my place. It might seem fast, but we weren't concerned about pace. I could tell that he was strictly a top. But I couldn't know just how he'd hit the spot in every room. And whenever in mirror, he made me feel so sexy. I'd never seen myself clearer. And he felt, oh, so good, pressed against my skin. On his chest, a tiny stylized penguin. That sealed the deal for me. It really did. I've loved penguins since I was a kid and always dreamed of seeing Antarctica. He was more suited to Costa Rica, but that didn't matter. When we were together, I knew we could face any kind of weather. And for 23 years, we've done just that. He's been by my side and he's had my back. We've had our share of snags along the way. And whether I still deserve them is really hard to say. I've given him a lot to be angry about. I mean, I always leave him hanging. Make him feel inside out. And I don't take him on dates like I did at the start. But I think he knows he still has my heart. And that I will love him forever. And I still want to get dirty and sweaty together. And if I had to choose just one garment to keep and throw everything else into a burning heap, I would choose him. No other clothes that could beat. Thank you. And yes, I do take off my underwear at that point. I'm just wearing the t-shirt at the end of my piece usually, but McNally Robinson.
I'm flipping through to find the poem that would be like the perfect follow-up to that, which was about like the relationship I had that had the largest age gap, and like it was pretty large. I was the young person, always the young person, okay? But she told me once, I think it was supposed to be flirtatious, that she had a sweater older than me. Ooh. It was not flirtatious, or it didn't work as flirtation. And there's a few about that person in the tiny red book, if you're want to read about why profs need to not flirt with students. I'll do this little found poem instead. That's about living in Edmonton, and I don't know Saskatoon real well, but there's some comparable stuff, right? Prairie City, at least to a rural maritime kid. This is a found poem, and it's basically stuff strangers in Edmonton said to me when I would just be walking on the sidewalk in the year 2006 to 2007. So the year I moved to Edmonton, had never really lived in a city, was like, I was gonna say like, and I was sort of genderqueer then, like, as opposed to now. I don't know what I mean by that, but had a slightly different look, but similar maybe. People said so much stuff, I just was like, I'm gonna make a Microsoft Word document and start plugging it in. and it was just like pages. So this is like, highly curated. This is just a greatest hits. 101 interpolations on 99th Avenue. The subway is called an LRT in Edmonton, light rail transit. Okay. You selling? You buying? I thought you were trying to cruise me, dude. Got any change, man? Got any change, ma'am? Well, it looks like you do. I'll take an IOU. You. Excuse me, I need to get to Clairview. Do you know where the nearest LSD station is? Dude, you gotta lose some weight. Like, I can't even see your dick. Dude, that don't sound right. Your voice don't sound right. Dude, I wouldn't wear that pink tie in this neighborhood if I were you. You are so handsome. Do you want to smoke a J and just see what happens? With some people, it is difficult to tell whether they are a man or a woman. You are one of those people. You need a woman to carry these groceries for you. God bless you. You. Where to, big guy? Chief, sport, pal, champ? That's quite a haircut you've got there. You better run fast, bitch. Are you a lesbian? Dude, that's a lesbian. Do us a favor and make out. Wow, I can't believe you all use as a man's name out east. Lucas, well, I gotta tell you, you look more like a Lucy. How much do you weigh? You don't know anything. All you care about is food. Fag or dyke? Fag or dyke? What the fuck are you? You. So that's like my greatest hits. But if you like do that in a not in a prairie city, you can't do that poem in Vancouver or Montreal. I tried it in Montreal and everyone's like, we knew. We knew it sucked there. We knew it's unlivable. And I'm like, no, it's an I love Edmonton poem. It's I can't wait to move back there 16 years later. But it's a complex love. Sometimes there's snippiness in a complex love. It's how it goes. So I wouldn't maybe normally do that one, but I wanted to almost, I like doing it in a round because then you can sort of do a response poem. But I thought, the F word, the slur poem, I just, it makes you sick. And then there's some in there that I'm like, no, you guys really got me. The dudes who were like, fag or dyke. Yes. That was scary as hell and you get it, but you don't, you're so close, and so I think, I'll do a second one and we'll do a time check. Do you have more though? Okay, you're out. Yeah. Okay, and that's exactly what you were supposed to. I'm just like, can I? But I'll do a rural Nova Scotia shared Jewish ancestry one, since how often do we get to be rural Nova Scotian Jew queers? Is it? It's not just us though. It can be. It can. But if it is, lordy. Okay. Won't do the whole backstory, but it's something I kind of found out later in life. I think maybe not the last time I saw you, but I was launching that little red book and was like, y'all, I had to go launch this in rural Nova Scotia. It's a book about surviving growing up Catholic to learn that actually my dad was Jewish. And his whole Mom, are you watching? Abusive ways. My dad were largely about this traumatic, abusive childhood he had, where he was sort of passed from home to home, raised quite Orthodox, and then zoop, you're no longer Jewish. So it's kind of about that. His grandfather, my actual grandfather, is a taxi driver. And so I have these pictures now of my little dad with a little tiny yarmulke on in front of this cab. And so this is about that history for me, but also about taxi cabs because I love a taxi cab, period. All right. My life in taxi cabs. And these two are from this green book. A cabbie can be a physician, a prof, a gentleman, a jerk. A cabbie can be a magician and, oh, reduce your legwork. In Fredericton, 1949, a cabbie was manslaughtered. Another dead cabbie, your secret Jewish grandfather. Taking cabs is my fulfillment of a class mobility narrative encrypted in the dead cells of my parched arches, buried in the marrow of my heavy metatarsals. For catharsis, I wash the tired trotters of my cochon carcass. Too many marching band marches with my largesse. How many Jews does it take to screw in the brightest electric menorah to ever fluoresce? A cabbie poses with his son, your father, by Halifax Harbor. A cabbie poses proudly with his son in front of his taxi. When my dad's mother remarried, she reclaimed him, told him he's no longer Jewish, would never see his father again. When the new stepfather met his new stepson, he put down the bottle and said, "You're fat, let's see if this bottle will break over your head." The allure of a cab is that someone will come when you call, and the mirage of a home to which you can and want to return. A cab can take you anywhere, Vancouver reference, to the dispensary at West 4th and Burrard. If you want to roll one up with an onion leaf page torn from your unabridged work of the Bard, the professor said it would be a good investment. Philosophy reference, don't worry if it's whatever. Louis Althusser, philosophy guy, sees me on Barrington trying to hail a cab to no avail. I warned his wife, he's already set sail. I plied him with old triangles of burning bourbon, but he said his fate and my rhymes overdetermined. Althusser refused to go to the psych ward and killed his wife later that year. So take him with a grain of sand in your shoe. Did it ever occur to you that the wandering Jew just couldn't find a cab? He limps without rhythm. All he wants is a running meter. What was the food that fueled the farts with which this cab was hot-boxed? 100 years ago, Halifax exploded, and the profile of a dead man still shadows a window of St. Paul's Church on Argyle. A while ago, it was a question on Jeopardy. What is a ready-made sculpture of sham memory? What is a salt and pepper portrait of a belated Zadie and me? What do you call a fag without a cab? A Hailing Mary. Is that a gaff that takes us aback? Are we afraid of my queer linguistic bric-a-brac, the crotchety tchotchkes of my cantankerous tongue wrung sky dry? In Montreal, a glut of taxis meant my butt got cruised. Cabbies could sniff out a fat ass in need on Saint Denis, slow down until my averted eyes signaled decline. They could sense my tired behind, bruised cheek, all saying otique. They would sneak over to the road's cold shoulder and have me in the back seat in a busted heart's meek beat when my smile belied a sick belly of slick smoked meat gone awry. Some cabs stunk, goat fromage in small hay nest, yet I, always sick, wandering Jew, desperate for a meter, flustered by mustard and cussing rich custard, I'd hop in and bastardize my address. 1200 burp Laurier Est. Once on Avenue to Dr. Penfield, a cabbie exclaimed, "Woman drivers, am I right? Men and women couldn't be further apart." "Oh, we're closer than we seem," I said. "We are always closer than we seem. The call is coming from inside the cab." Wouldn't it have been fab if I licked his earlobe and said, "There's a clitoris, a dick, clitoris, sick, throbbing inside of this cab"? His wrists, my tie, my mouth, his ass got who's to say if I did or did not. That's a first, slipping during a poetry reading. Yes. And we're almost done. In other cabs, gratuitous diet advice. Eat less cheese. Cheese has made you too thick. More cabbage. You're so fat I can't even see your dick. I smell burnt bagels, and flotsam floods my brain, vexed when a cabbie calls my partner and I sisters one day and brothers the next. I need a new necrophiliac GPS. I play chess with checker, but they can't get me to dead grandfather or to work on time. A cabbie can be a physician, prof, gentleman, a jerk, a mirage, a montage, alone, or a legion. Our very last cab had a breakdown on Regent. We bought an old car last week. I'll miss the conversations, except those in which abortion and chauvinism feature. I've always been much more afraid of a blue lagoon than a creature. Thank you. I always think less is more with a poetry reading. Are we aiming to end at 8?
Yes, if you'd like to take some questions or do another piece, you're welcome to.
Do you have questions? It's that professor thing of, do you have any questions, or you're going to have to hear more lecture. And then students are like, oh, come up with something.
What's your next poem? He's ignoring the question.
Yes, I am. But like, if anyone needs to go, just I want you to not feel, I don't want you to feel, oh, but I thought he was going to do 2 and I had, But there's a question from the famous Marina.
I have a question, but it's more of a comment.
You are.
I'd just like to say the poems have been fantastic tonight, but I do have a question, but it's not about these poems, but it's about poetry, because I'd like to know how it was to teach howl to first-year students in the depths of the countryside in Alberta. How, because I heard it from a distance, but how did that go?
So no offense, but that question is for me. Marina and I both work at the Augustana facility. It's now called that. Like, I love that. I love that so much. No, loving on you. And we were in the elevator and I was like, I'm off to try to teach howl and I've never done a good job of it. I had fun.
It sounded good. I was thinking.
Oh, you could hear things.
Yeah, it sounded really good.
I will, how it went is I was like, this, okay. I talked about it as like, let's talk about your shock and disgust. And like, you can go find this poem online, Ginsberg Howl, if you don't know it. It's like 7 pages long. So that was part of the shock and disgust of the students. And I love them. They were like, poems should not be that long. But then I like kind of gave them like the origin of the poem. And I'm like, you guys, this guy was a queer, closeted-ish weirdo, wrote this as a performance thing, read it in a dorm lounge. That's how it was first performed. So you all go home and write and get in the, what's the name of the dorm there?
Whitney.
Yeah, former RA, prof. Get back to Hoyne and like you too, man, So that kind of got them connected to it because they hear poet and they're like elitism. So I had to kind of sweep that, and then I did a thing that was like, what is the purpose of like questioning the binary of like sacred and profane? And I'd just be like, so, some of you may be very religious and there are things that are sacred to you. We all have things that are sacred to us. What's the point of being profane? And you don't have to like this. But I think they got into it. I added a class on it though, because I was like, are they getting the stakes of this? Because sometimes, and even like there's a few queer students in that class, and they're like, okay, yeah, there's written in the past, a few decades ago, that's ancient history, who cares? And I just had to go in one day and be like, I'm going to talk to you about going to St. Francis Xavier University and people literally following me around the library praying. Like, I'm gonna drop stories on you. And like the queer student who's like a really respectable girl in the back was like, "Arr!" and tried to get them to relate to, you know, maybe if they were more profane, they would, you know, get schooled for it and shot down for it too, and would maybe know, I think, a bit more the commitment to the sacred that's still around cameras, you know.
I know the reason you made me think of it was the poem at the LRT and the, you know, are you a dyke, are you a guy?
Yeah.
That whole thing seemed like that resonated with what you seem to be doing over the transom from that.
Yeah,
from that
yeah,
class.
yeah. I'm gonna keep thinking on it because there's a better answer, but it was maybe the only time I was like, is it gonna be too much? Like, it literally, there's lines that are like, ass fucking the angels. And I was like, so we're gonna focus on that line today and why it makes us feel uncomfortable, or, you know. I just have to walk away from the mic to stop.
You see why all the students who came to the Women's Center were jazzed though. Now we see.
Yeah, I think they were jazzed at Augustana.
Exactly.
That's so cool. Like, that warms my heart. I taught really briefly at McGill, and they're so like kind of opposite of SFU students, because they're like, I may want to be an ally, but I want to get an A+. I'm from Toronto, and the McGill students who would come see me after were like, I want to do better in the course. Or there was one student that after was like, so we've read these articles about like BDSM dungeons. Where can I find one in Montreal? And I was like, in terms of thinking about liability for student safety, I was like, you're just gonna have to make Google your friend. And she was like, what about these kinky sex parties that the queer theorists were having? Where are those? And I was like, Google will have to be your friend. And if you find it, let's not speak there. Let's ignore each other. I didn't say that. Why not a book? It's not it's not the only way of, you know, but I would love to be able to like teach your poems.
Yeah, it's not
you know what I mean?
Most of my writing, I write specifically to be performed. So like sometimes it's a character, or it has a costume, or it has a prop like a puppet. And a lot of it just doesn't translate to the page the same way. Like, I'm never as satisfied with it on the page as I am when it's performed. I do want to focus more on like writing for the page, and I did that more during COVID when I wasn't able to perform. But yeah, but I did all Star Wars poetry, and like I don't think I'm gonna get that published because it's copyrighted. Yeah. I mean,
They are
Star Wars
nervous about the
generated.
copyright.
Yeah.
They're like, there's one line quoting Leonard Cohen and inserting a dildo into the line, and University of Calgary was like,
Can't do that.
so long, dildo. Yeah. Edit it, but I wonder how you could, well, you'll just have to come to cameras.
I was just gonna say, this guy loves to have a guest speaker in his classes.
I would have one.
Double, come double header. Double, you know, bring the shirt.
All right.
Right in the chapel.
Yeah, where I did a reading in the chapel in 2008 or something. Got there, and our current boss was like, yeah, it's in the chapel. And now I have since read about the chapel that's like, events in the chapel must have a certain decorum, and I didn't know I was a wee one. But now I'm like, I'm gonna hold this in not the chapel.
Or were you just making the profane sacred?
Exactly. Yeah. You know. Any questions for
Does everybody know where to buy books? Because Alyssa has made us a very beautiful book table over at the back. That's the most important question.
There's a whole bunch of the on the way empty.
Can I ask what's next for you?
Oh, sure.
book wise or whatever wise?
So I'm finishing up my residency at the University of Calgary, and in September, we're going to have a very nice event on campus that will also be live streamed, where we will hand it off to Francine Cunningham, who I don't know if you know, but who is also a tremendous Albertan poet, shortlisted for the Carol Shields Prize recently, author of On Me, book of poetry with Calgary Press, and then also a collection of short stories called God Isn't Here Today. A little bit apropos. So if folks are in Calgary, you should come, but if you are here, please watch the live stream because it will be very nice. And then I'm going to take a little break after the residency.
Yeah. Nice.
We try in the spirit of having sustainable tours. And
We were talking about book tours earlier, and Ryan was like, "Are you going to tour this book?" And I said, "To sort of tour," because poets do a real like get in a tiny car for 5 weeks, and it's like not a stretch, you know. So Edmonton, Saskatoon, Halifax. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I feel like we're kind of, but there may be any other. Why did I become the toast person? I'm sorry. That's how I'll end. Apologies. There is a question in the back.
Well, I guess because you just said that, why is Saskatoon in your list of 2 places to stop for your book tour?
Oh, it is a good question. I want to say, because I wanted to read with these two, I literally thought you lived in Calgary and you lived in Regina. Only because that's where we met. So everyone I met at that festival from Regina.
Yeah.
So it has ended up being a real special thing for me. Thank you so much. My real answer is that why am I being shy about this? Like, my girlfriend is a Saskatchewan farm girl, and we were like, let's go to our home provinces this summer. So here we are in Saskatchewan, and I was like, I'll do a reading, and then we'll go to Nova Scotia in August.
it's very romantic.
Romance.
Yeah, the poet
Should-
book tour is.
Should I now do the long poem with us at the bathhouse?
Listen, you could. After 8.
Not just boring romance. I feel defensive. Issues clearly. No. Is that an answer? Sort of. Oh, thank you. Oh, thanks. Thanks for coming. Do you know any of these people?
No, I was looking online and it just something sparked within.
What's your name?
Tracy.
Tracy.
Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks. Would you like me to wrap things up and let you mingle?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. All right. I'll just say a quick word before I let you go. I'd like to thank Lucas, Leah, and Ryan again for being with us tonight. And I will now invite you to meet Lucas at the signing table with your copies of muster points, which can be found on the table beside you. You are more than welcome to get your copies signed before you purchase them. Just make sure to stop at the cash desk on your way out the door. Thank you all so much for coming tonight, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.